Well, hey there, and welcome back to Heimler's History. It is AP exam season, and I've been doing my fighting best to help you get prepared for your exams. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I would plan an LEQ for AP US History. And as I've said before, a good plan almost always means a good essay. And so we need to take our time here and make sure that we are organized in our minds before we start writing. And if you want to follow along with me, you're going to need two things. You're going to need the AP US History LEQ worksheet, and you're going to need the LEQ that we are going to be working on, both of which are linked down below in the description. Okay, no time to waste. Let's look at the prompt. For this one, we're going to use number 4. Evaluate the extent to which scientific or technological innovation changed the United States economy in the period from 1950 to 2000. And of course, the most important thing you do before you start writing your essay is to make sure you understand what they're asking you to do in the prompt. And so that's what the first section of this worksheet is about. So let's get into it. First of all, what's the historical thinking skill they're asking me to write about? And this one, it's easy. It says, how did technological innovation change the United States economy? So this is a change question. And just to be clear, what kind of change are they asking me to talk about? Well, in this case, it's scientific and technological innovation and how it changed the United States economy. And just so I'm clear, I want to make sure that I write the time period down here, so I write an essay within that time period. And this one is 1950 to 2000. Okay, so now that I understand what they're asking me to write about, I need to go find some evidence. And this is not the DBQ. They're not going to actually give you the evidence, so you got to crack your brain folds open and hope there's something in there. So I just want to take a moment to brainstorm some evidence and try to figure out how am I going to organize my argument, and then I want to write my topic sentences. So the first couple of things I think about with respect to the changing economy and technological scientific innovation, I think about new communication technologies, and I think about the military-industrial complex. So that's how I'm going to organize my argument. So my first topic sentence is going to read like this. The first way technological innovation changed the U.S. economy was through the introduction of new communication technology. Then my second topic sentence is going to read like this. The second way technological innovation changed the U.S. economy was by the blending of military production with industrial output. Okay, and so now that I've got the broad categories of how I'm going to argue this, now I want to sit down and write my thesis. And remember your thesis formula, although X because A and B, therefore Y. X is your counter argument, A and B is specific historical evidence, and Y is your argument. And remember, this is an evaluate the extent to which kind of question, and so I need to weigh certain options and understand how things continued and how things changed, and so that's what I want to reflect in my thesis to make it a complex thesis, and therefore hopefully a complex essay. So here's how I would write it. Although the U.S. economy continued to depend on the consumption of mass culture and military production because of the introduction of television, internet, and cell phones, and the further relationship between the military and industrial sectors, new technological innovations greatly changed the U.S. economy from 1950 to 2000. So notice what I did there. I talked about how there's a continuing trend, like all the way back to the 20s, you've got technologies like the radio that are spreading mass culture, creating mass consumption, but that's going into this period, and it's accelerated by new communication technologies like television, the internet, cell phones, and so that leads to a great change. And as far as military and industry goes, you can go back to World War I and World War II and see how the American economy was basically focused on war production, and that's still going to be true in this period, but during the Cold War, the fusion of the military-industrial complex changed the economy even greater. And that's arguable, but that's what I'm going to argue. Okay, so now that we're done with our thesis, let's flip the page and go to our contextualization paragraph. Now, when it comes to the contextualization paragraph, remember, I want to name some specific evidence, but it has to be related to my argument. So here's what I would think of. First, I would think of the baby boom and how that led to mass consumption. Second, I would think about the rise of the advertising industry. And third, I'd think about the larger context of the Cold War and the arms race with the Soviet Union. And so that contextualizes both sides of my argument. And the special sauce here is you have to remember to connect these to your argument, and that's what I'm going to do here. All of these things taken together increased demand on the U.S. economy in both directions, both in the consumption of mass-produced goods and the military-industrial complex. Okay, now that we've got our contextualization down, the final step in all of this is to actually list the evidence we're going to use that will support our topic sentences, which will in turn support our thesis. And remember, on the rubric, you're only required to have a minimum of 2 pieces of evidence, but if you're aiming for that complexity point, I want to have some more than that. So with respect to the first part of my argument, the communication technologies, I think of the television and internet. And then with respect to the second part of my argument, which has to do with the fusion of the military and industrial output, here's the evidence I think of. I think of the military-industrial complex that Dwight Eisenhower warned about. I think of the nuclear weapons that were produced for the arms race, which is just kind of an illustration of the military-industrial complex. And I think about the Sun Belt migration. And now the most important part, remember, your paragraphs are not just a running vocabulary list that you show that you know the definitions of things. No, this evidence is there to show that your argument is correct. Or maybe if not correct, at least the most persuasive reading of the evidence. And so the second part of all of these is this. You have to connect it to your argument. The best way I know how to do that is to use the phrase, this shows, or which shows, or this demonstrates, and then show how these pieces of evidence actually prove your thesis. So television shows change in the economy because of the spread of mass culture, which created demand for those goods and services. The internet did similar things, but I'm going to talk about how the introduction of the internet led to a shift to a knowledge economy, and the industrial sector then shifted overseas, which of course is a huge change to the US economy. And I'm going to do the same thing for my second batch of evidence. The military-industrial complex shows that the economy was becoming entwined with military production. And I'm probably just going to use the nuclear weapons as an example of that, so that's not going to be an additional piece of evidence. You know, I could use lots of other things like the Strategic Defense Initiative or anything like that. And then I'm going to talk about the Sun Belt migration, which shows the defense industry caused a massive migration, shifting the economic power of the United States toward the Sun Belt states. And that's it. That's how I would plan this LEQ. And from there, you just start writing. You've done all the heavy lifting. You just have to make it look good. All right, now I hope that was helpful to you. If you need even more help, you can grab my AP Essay Cram course over there, which will tell you everything you need to know about how to score well on all the writing on this exam. If you like this video, you want me to keep making them, then you let me know that by subscribing, and you know me, I shall oblige. HEIMLER out.